I'm having a lot of fun designing these workshops.
Mm-hmm.
One that's really, I've got so many wheels turning, man. I'm like, I think a lot of the stress that I'm experiencing today is very much self-induced, because I'm like thinking of all this stuff. Like, I've been wanting to write a book forever. And so part of my brain is like trying to, outline the chapters and what's the content of each. And I know I don't know, how much to put in one book and how much of it needs to be like 3 or 4 separate books, so there's like all this information that I want to put on paper. And so part of what I'm doing is as I'm thinking through some of these concepts, I'm putting them into, when I start to put them on paper, I'm putting them into workshops. And one of the ones that's really resonated with me recently, and it's probably because I'm so bad at this. Apparently, I didn't realize how bad I was at this, but apparently I'm not very good at communication. I thought I was really good at this, but Brittany has made it blatantly very, very much aware that that's a huge hole in my game. So I'm trying to.
Communication is procrastination.
What's that?
Sean says it's not communication, it's procrastination.
It's procrastination.
Yeah, putting off the hard conversation.
Well, that's not the right word either.
Yeah, you just said.
I don't put them off. That's one of the things that I tell her. I was like,
I think you're like you've got so much on your plate that it's the prioritization of how you're going to have that conversation.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you some scenarios and I want you to give me some counseling. Okay. So like one of the ones that I ran into recently, like she just walked out of my office. That's one of the reasons why I was late, because she came in and I didn't respond to a text message. I can't remember how it unfolded, but I was fine earlier today, and I just seemed to get more and more stressed as the day went on. And as she came home, she came in and she's like, how long is the podcast going to last? And I'm already running late, right? Because we had people over for the Super Bowl and all the kids were running around the house having a good time. Well, one of the places that they thought would be great to go and play is my office. And so they came in here and they knocked cameras over, and, I had to put all that stuff back together and had to plug stuff back up. And then the batteries in my audio device were dead. So then I had to go around the house searching for batteries. So I'm running behind already. And I'm like, that's stressing me out because I don't like running late. And then it was like 4 or 5 minutes after the start time, and she walks in and like wanted to have a conversation. I was like, it's not the best time. And she said, she goes, how long is the podcast going to last? And I said, hour and 15 minutes. And I'm not present with her. I'm disconnected with her because I'm focused on getting this thing started. So she said that I sounded dismissive, which is probably very accurate. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, I don't know, hour and 15 minutes, give or take. And she says, shoot, I thought I had more time. And I was like, what do you mean? She says, well, I wanted to eat and I want to go get my nails done before we go to the gym and train. And I was like, okay, go do what you got to do. Now, apparently the tonality in which I said that was not the same in real life, right? The reenactment that I just gave you sounded not so bad, but apparently the real life version sounded a little worse. And so she said, what's wrong with you? And I don't know if that's become a trigger for me, but she says, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, why does something have to be wrong with me? You know what I mean? And I got irritated. So now I'm irritated. So now I'm running late. I'm stressed. And now I'm irritated. So the conversation kind of escalated from there. And man, the hardest thing is, I guess it would have to be ego. I can recognize a cry for help for a cry for help. Like I can recognize that when that occurs. More so in other people than in myself.
I was going to say hers or yours?
Yeah, more so hers than my own. But neither of us are very good at responding to that cry for help effectively. And it's having a very enhanced sensory acuity too. Like, for example, when somebody says they would call it a quality response, they would say that this is an apology. They would say, I'm sorry that you misunderstood me. Right? That's not a quality response. That's a cry for help. It's not, I'm sorry that you misunderstood me. It's not, I'm sorry that you don't understand. I'm sorry that you're upset. It's, I'm sorry I upset you. I'm sorry I didn't communicate that in a way that made sense. You follow what I'm saying? So it's like, I think when you say, I'm sorry that you're upset, or I'm sorry that you don't understand, you're not taking accountability or responsibility for that. It's just passing it off to the other person. And that's kind of what you're dealing with in that exchange. It's like hot potato. Nobody wants to hold the thing, right? And it's like you just pass it back and forth, and it just becomes a cry for help with a cry for help. Even seasoned and trained people in communication. I'm very seasoned, very educated when it comes to communication, but the application, the experiences, the wisdom, I think, that is embedded in communication, in experience with communication, is a whole nother level.
I think so. I think that the challenge comes in when we're trying to solve it when we're in the moment of pain, right? When we're in the moment of upset, disconnect. And really, I think where the really good work comes in is when we get out in front of that. Like if we're able to identify the emotion that we're in earlier than that.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine the conversation with Brittany. If you had said, man, I'm feeling really stressed about the fact that I'm running behind for this podcast, and I didn't clean up everything that I wanted to clean up so I'd be ready for it. So I'm sorry if I'm distracted when you're talking. Mm-hmm. If we can be proactive, and I think you're right about ego. We're so quick to protect the ego, but if we can come in and say, out ahead of those emotions and say, here's what I'm feeling and here's how it's showing up, and I need a little grace, or it diffuses it right off. What we try to do,
Yeah, you're so right. And I make that recommendation all the time too. It's following your own advice, I guess.
Well, it's shoemakers can have no shoes.
Yeah.
Right?
Now that I'm thinking about it. Now that I'm thinking about it, if I had to do that over again, that's exactly what I would have said when she came in. I said, listen, I'm stressed. I'm irritable. I'm running late for this podcast. I'm not very bubbly right now. Go eat your meal, go get your nails done, and then we'll go train later when everything's done.
Or you could
that probably would have come across a lot better.
Yeah, or just say, gosh, I'm way late. Can you help me out here? Because really somebody like Brittany, but this is true for most humans, they just want to help, right? I mean, you just want to help somebody you care about. And so if we ask for help before we're making a cry for help, it's an entirely different conversation too. Pre-frame and ask,
Yeah. Because I had a call with a team member the other day, and this particular team member is having some communication challenges with multiple people on her team. And she's a very valuable team member. She's great at what she does clinically. She's great team player as far as helping everyone get everything done. She's a D-type personality. So she's like, get it done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Military background,
driven,
very assertive, direct, and all that kind of stuff. And this is profound. Like I taught myself, had that experience. You ever done that?
Yeah.
Where you're helping somebody else with something, and as you're helping them with it, you're thinking through it, and you're like, wait a second.
Wait.
This is what I do. So I had this moment the other day, and she said, and as we were talking, she was like, I really don't understand how people misunderstand me. Right. She was like, it can't be me. I think they're just too sensitive. And I said, well,
my D's say that all the time.
Yeah. So I said, well, let me ask you a question. I said, is it a communication breakdown between you and one other person, or is it a communication breakdown between you and multiple people? And she said, multiple people. And I said, okay, can I be real with you? And she said, sure. And I said, where's the common variable? Where's the common denominator? She says, well, I guess it's me. And I said, okay, so if we can isolate that, now let's work on that. Because she got on the call with me and she was a little defensive, right? Because she was like, John's here and he's going to fix me. It was that whole thing. So I was like, well, man, if I came into this call with that mindset, I wouldn't want to be on that call either. I have no interest in being on that call, And so I was able to diffuse that. And then we got into a productive conversation. And she said, well, I don't know how they misunderstand me, because she said, I'm very intentional about what I say. And I was like, what do you mean? And she says, well, I'm very monotone. Like, I take emotion out of it. I communicate very logically. So, and I do it with that intention. So there is no tonality. How do you misinterpret what I'm saying if there's no tonality? And I was like, as she was saying that, it started to sound very familiar. And I was like, okay, so I get what you're saying. I said, I come to think of it, I said, I do the same thing. And then it was just like this moment of curiosity for me, because I was like, I'm curious. So you're very monotone when you communicate and you're being misinterpreted. And I said, I do the same thing. And my fiance tells me that I sound cold and emotionless. And she says, yeah, my fiance says the same thing. And I was like, oh, whoa, wait a second. Now we've got a repeatable occurrence. So now this isn't just isolated to me. This has happened in a whole nother person's life, completely separate of my own. And so there must be something to that. And so I got to thinking, I was like, if I'm thinking about it, most people's minds gravitate to the negative, right? Like, if you don't know what's about to happen, most people, I think, their minds will gravitate to something negative. You know what I mean?
No, Sean and I have this argument all the time.
Yeah, because pain's a bigger motivating factor, right? It's like, before you have a difficult conversation, you anticipate that conversation being much worse than it is in reality.
But see, that's completely dependent upon somebody's threshold for pain or discomfort.
Sure.
Like, I love that kid who's in that commercial and he's eating that spicy hot Cheeto and he's telling the dad that his daughter's a good kisser. And I want to use that in my training so bad, because people have different thresholds of discomfort, right? Mm-hmm. And so we tend to assume that things are operating at our threshold of discomfort. Mm-hmm. But our threshold of discomfort doesn't match somebody else's. Theirs might be lower or higher. They label things differently. They filter that information differently.
Mm-hmm.
So along that line, and what I was thinking about, John, when you were talking is, I've been looking at the Enneagram personalities, mm-hmm. and I'm a 9. And as a 9, even if somebody isn't raising their voice, our brain processes it like they are. Mm-hmm. We're ultra sensitive. And so it carries right. I mean, it depends on what kind of personality that person has and what their automatics are and all of that. That has to do with how you come off to them or how she came off to them.
Yeah. So I'd say somebody, I agree. I think somebody with a much lower threshold for pain is going to anticipate discomfort. The probability that they anticipate discomfort is much higher than someone with a much higher threshold for pain, right? A little discomfort isn't that big of a deal, right?
Yeah.
But I guess
emotional intelligence comes in there too.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and so I guess the point I'm trying to make is if, like, tonality exists for a reason, right? Like, I asked her, I said, well, when you communicate with somebody, what 3 ways do people perceive you, right? Like, they see your facial expressions and your body language. So sometimes when their words are a loving response, their facial expression is a cry for help, right? They can also hear your words. So your words may be perfect. It may not be what you said. It may be how you said it. Absolutely. And obviously they've got tonality. They can hear tonality, right? And so her facial expression is very dry, very no expression. Her words are perfect, and the tonality is monotone, like no inflection, no fluctuation, no tonality, right? Very monotone. And so what I learned is there's tonality has a purpose. And the purpose is to let the other person know whether the emotion or the intention behind the words is positive or negative. And if you take the positive or negative out, I think most people are going to gravitate to negative. So if you respond in a way that's very monotone, the probability that we interpret that as something's wrong is much higher than if you're very monotone and we interpret that as, oh, he's in a great mood, right? Like the probability that our mind makes that mean that something's wrong is exponentially higher. And so as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, okay, so when I communicate with Brittany and we're having like a debate, okay, we'll call it a debate. And I'm very monotone. And she said, oh, you're just emotionless. Like there's, you're just very cold. And I'm like, I'm not cold. I'm emotionally managed. Right. Like that's what I call it. my super. How does
that work out
here?
How's that work out for you? Emotionally managed.
Yeah. And so there's such an ego behind that. Because
I had a question for you.
What's that?
So before you said it, you kind of answered it. How much work do you do on vulnerability?
Probably none. Elaborate for me.
So I was having this conversation with another client the other day, and we were talking about vulnerability. And when I present the concept of vulnerability to executives, very often, this is a hard one for me because it's something I struggle with. Because vulnerability, right, like Brene Brown says, it's not, podcasting your bikini wax. It's about being vulnerable to feedback, being vulnerable to opposing opinions, being vulnerable to a critique, being vulnerable to, sharing. Like if you're in a corporate situation and the news is bad, you give the news and you say, I'm not quite sure how this is going to work out. But I feel like I'm 100% in it with you. I will do everything in my power, whatever. I wasn't raised in a household where femininity was great. If you were going to have a breakdown because you were feminine, good. If you were going to be vulnerable about something, not really good. So it was hard for me to learn vulnerability because it was not okay, right? My dad's like, buck it up, little cup, And I was like, as an adult, I realized that when you're not willing to explore your vulnerability and you're not willing to be emotionally open that way, it blocks people from being able to connect at a deep trusting level. You know what I mean? But if you weren't raised when it was an environment where it's okay to be vulnerable, it's something we have to constantly work on. Like, what does that look like? How do I demonstrate vulnerability in a way that's healthy and not oversharing, or what's the worst thing that happens if somebody sees me being vulnerable, and will I recover from that?
Mm-hmm. I don't know so much if it's work that I've done specifically on vulnerability, but I will say I'm much more secure and confident in who I am now compared to who I was, say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And because of that security and self-confidence, I'm much more willing to be vulnerable than I was 5-10 years ago.
So now is when you have to open that up, right? I mean, now now if you're confident enough to start prying the lid off, what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Out in front of that and say, I feel at risk, or I I don't like how I'm showing up, or I don't like who I'm being right now, or whatever that is, or I want to be more like this, or I want to approach things more like that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you help me get there? What does that look like? What do I need to do? Where am I missing? That level of vulnerability would certainly go a long way, I guess. I'm thinking in cleaning up those that lack of tonality and that lack of inflection and emotion that's attached to the speech. Like, you might have that emotion. So the question is, so here's how I would go. You might have all that emotion. Why isn't it coming out in your speech? Why is your speech even? Why doesn't it?
That's not congruent, right? Like the tonality and the words aren't matching up. So that's naturally going to throw up a red flag.
Right.
Right.
Which impacts trust and other people's willingness to share and to be vulnerable in return. Because the authenticity is
there, but it's not coming out for some reason.
Yeah. It's not that it's not authentic, and it's not that it's not genuine.
Sure.
The way it's being presented is compromising the authenticity. Right? Like when we're having that conversation, I'm very authentic. I'm very genuine. Yeah. I'm being very truthful. I'm like, listen, this is how I feel. And it's almost as if by removing the tonality, it helps me be more comfortable being vulnerable.
Yes.
But it doesn't communicate that to her.
Well,
stop being in control of your emotions when you're talking to her.
Yeah, what's going to happen? Right, like just for anybody. You can take this to the girl the person that you were talking with, right? Mm-hmm. What's keeping you from being able to add that level of inflection that allows somebody to connect, at that emotional level? Not just connect with the idea or the thought, right? But connect at the emotional, heartfelt level.
It's hard, man, because that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm not trying to defend the person that I was talking to. Mm-hmm. I'm taking her experience because I'm experiencing the same thing.
Right.
I'm like, what is it? What's at the source of it? Right? Because
so if you were to do that, if you take your client through it, what is it, the source of it? Is it awareness? Is it,
it would have to be a belief system on some level. Mm-hmm. That has to be at the root of it, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that is.
I read this really amazing quote. I don't have it on me right now, but it was something along the lines of, be aware of the things that trigger you because those are unresolved issues.
Oh, yeah. So you mean like when someone doesn't put punctuation at the end of their text message?
Ever?
Or somebody says in their text message ...
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I do that.
That one kills me.
But I won't do it with John.
Say what you want to say. Just say it. Why ... All you're doing is telling me that there's more to it. You just don't want to tell me what it is.
Texting in the car. Why punctuate? You know what I mean. No. But the thing I'm thinking is that if the response that we get, right? If the meaning is the response we get, mm-hmm. and the meaning is somebody saying to someone, I need more emotion, or I need more connection. Well, people connect emotionally, right? So, and if it's a muscle that we need to build, like any other muscle, we have to think about, okay, well, what goes into, how do I feed that? right? How do I build that? How do I grow that? How do I exercise that? How do I, right? How do I get comfortable with that?
And that's the other part. That's the other hard part too, is, I mean, even if your awareness muscle is strong enough to recognize what's happening in the moment, I don't know if it's discipline. What's the opposite of ego?
Well, you've got the id, the ego, and the superego. So the id is all about immediate pleasure, just dealing, like immediate gratification.
Yeah.
The superego is that higher level.
Yeah. So I think it would be the opposite of, it's essentially the opposite of ego. If I'm thinking about it, like, what you recognize it, you have the awareness, like you're aware that this is happening in the moment, right? So, just acknowledge, like, say to the other person, say, listen, clearly that did not come out the way that I intended it to. I did not mean for that to upset you. Clearly it did. I apologize. This is my intention, right? Is it a lack of discipline that prevents us from doing that? Or is it ego saying, no, I'm right?
Or is it the feeling that we're not worthy of having that conversation?
Oh, no, that's deep.
Right? Like, I mean, maybe there's something along the lines of, I don't want to bother somebody with while I try to work this through.
Mm-hmm. I get that.
I have so a lot of this conversations that Sean and I have when we're driving to somewhere like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're down in Jackson. We were in the car 3.5 hours. I had 3 hours earlier this morning when I was in Selmer. When we're in the car, we spend a tremendous amount of time just exploring these concepts, like when it's not neutral, right? When you're not in pain, when you're not coming at somebody with I'm frustrated, blah, 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 but more in a reflection going, I don't know if I think I would have handled this different, or I've been thinking about this, or how do you approach that? Or when do you feel this way? In a more neutral.
Yeah. See, that's easy. Brittany and I do that. We do that every now and again. Okay. Like something we'll be driving, same type of scenario. We'll be driving and have an hour or so of drive time. And I'll say, man, I really handled that wrong the other day. Right. Like we kind of had a little issue yesterday, and took me 15, 20 minutes. And I recognized that I responded the wrong way. And we got to the gym where we were going. We got out, I hugged her, I kissed her. I said, listen, I'm sorry. I don't know why I was irritated. You know what I mean? Like after you're out of that state, it's easy. But when you're in that state and you're in the moment, like that's very difficult. That's very difficult. I mean, you're not a bad person.
No.
Right? You're not a bad person. I know you mean well, but in that state, you're a jackass.
We all have those moments.
Well, and that's the other thing, right? It's like we're human, right? It's continuum. You're on this continual evolution, right, in your communication. And I think that the willingness to explore it and make mistakes is kind of what differentiates us. That willingness to go.
Yeah.
And I remember walking with a friend of mine, and I'm like, I'm going to be honest. I'm in a bad place. And I'm a coach, and I know that. And I'm sorry, but COVID's just wearing me out. And she's like, I get it. You're human. I'm like, I feel really bad because people who know you're an executive coach, they expect you to always be like zipped up right tight,
Right.
And I think I think you're right. I think that's what differentiates those who lead, or those who have the what's the word I'm looking for? It's not moral. I don't know, I don't know the real description, so I'm just going to call it character. I don't think it's moral authority. It's not positional authority, but there's like levels of authority, right? Like you have authority over somebody because you're the boss, you have a title, or you have authority over somebody because you can produce the result and they can't, right? Or you have the authority over somebody because you're a better person, right? Like you're a better person, you're a better human being than they are. Which is moral authority. But there's another type of authority that's like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, rather than being that person that just accepts it and say, oh, that's just the way they are and that's just how it is. And you know what I mean? Being the person that says, no, there's a better way, right? Like life doesn't have to be that. You don't have to accept that life. Like there's a better life. There's more out there. Like you can achieve more. You can like experience more. There's a lot more. But if you're that person that just says, well, that's just the way it is, I'm just stuck with this. This is the life I was given. These are the cards I'm dealt. Like if that's the position you take, not no judgment, not saying you're a bad person, but I would say that you're wrong.
Well, so Sean and I were just in this debate. If you choose that that's all you want, you're not wrong. You're right.
Yeah.
Because that's your choice. I mean, you choose to not look at it. Either way, right? No matter what you choose, you're right.
Sure. But don't be a victim about it.
Right. But you don't have you don't have a right to be a victim about it. 100%.
That one rubs me the wrong way. Like, don't choose this and then complain about it. Like, if you don't like it, stop it.
Well, or don't not choose it all and then bitch about it. That's what.
Yeah, like
that's my. That is
that.
Like, you don't
let it happen
about it and do nothing, so you can complain about it for the next 10 years.
Yeah,
right.
Do something else. I mean, or say, "Oh, I love this. I'm so glad I chose this."
Yeah. And what I'm saying is somebody that has that mindset that I'm a victim, they're defensive, toxic by definition. I'm stuck. There's no way out. I didn't put myself here and I can't get myself out. You've got that person, and then the reactive person, and then you've got the other person, the proactive person, the person that says, no, the results in my life, whether I like them or I don't like them, somehow, some way, I may not know how, but I created them. I influenced them. And because I created them, I can change them. They were all a choice. And if I don't like them, then I'm going to do something about it and then start doing something about it. That person has authority over the person that chooses to be stuck.
I think that
universal authority. I'm not saying that they get to go tell that person what to do.
Right.
I mean, when you look at the universe as a whole, that person has more power to command what takes place around them than the
100%.
person that's stuck.
Because they're channeling every other consciousness out there. I mean, they're channeling all the wisdom of everybody who's come before them, that will come after them, anybody they choose to reach out to. If you get really, in the weeds, anybody in their network that they choose to reach out to and say, help me connect dot A and dot B. Now you have all those power of all those people working for you, right? And, back to that point, when you think about adding emotion or that cognitive awareness that the way that you're communicating something isn't landing the way you want, that desire to build the skill set such that you become a better influencer, right? So as a coach, we're always walking that fine line, right? Do we really want to influence? Because that's not our job, right? So as a trainer, when we're in the practices or whatever training, then I have to influence. As a coach, you're trying to help somebody deliver their vision their way. And that's always a tough line to walk. But the more we want to grow as a career, gain more clients, have better alliance partners, be able to do public speaking, our ability to influence, therefore emote, becomes really vital, right? Our ability to show emotion, our ability to connect with other people's emotions in a way that is authentic and vulnerable, that's super powerful. I mean, that's how all the great speakers before us connect with audiences of thousands. That's how we connected at a deeper level with our clients.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you go back to...
Go ahead, Jocelyn.
Well, going back to what you were saying about your client, you said her words were perfect,
Mm-hmm.
but she didn't have any tonality. And we don't know what her body was doing, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the tonality is a lot more important than what her words are. What is it? Words are 7%, tonality's 36 or something, and then your body language is the most.
Mm-hmm.
So the wording that you use is really the least important part, which is why you have to bring the emotion into it.
Yeah.
Well, you can't fake it either, right? So it's about, I guess, when you go into those hard conversations, it's giving yourself permission to say, okay, how am I feeling right now? How do I feel about what's happening? And if we go to DISC and you come from the thinking side of the scale, tapping into that is a lot of work. It's just like, when John and I have a conversation and he's like, hey, can you give me an analysis on that? It's going to be the last thing. It's just not my go-to, right? So I'm like, yeah, I need to do it. I know I need to do it. Someday I'll do it. And it's not yes, someday I'll do it. And it's not that I don't know how. I got the equations. I can work it. I'm great at Excel. I mean, I'm like a rock star on Excel.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's not a preference, right? So when you think about the preferences and you think about, well, where do you naturally gravitate to? It's going to take conscious effort, right? I have to carve out time in a quiet room by myself to do a pivot table. That takes time,
mm-hmm.
And that would take a deep commitment for me to go back and to do that.
Yeah, she has a hard exterior too. Brittany does. Like she's got a hard exterior.
Heart of gold, though.
What's that?
Heart of gold.
Oh yeah, totally.
Sure.
Totally. I don't know. I think that's probably the biggest difference between the two of us, and it seems to be the biggest obstacle we have to overcome. Is I'm very left-brained, and she's very right-brained. Right, so she's much more sensitive, and so it's hard for me to. I'm getting better at it, but it's hard for me to tailor, especially if I'm stressed or in the moment, or I'm against the timeline or something like that. It's difficult for me to tailor my communication in a way that won't offend her, because she's more sensitive than I am. Right. And so like saying it that way wouldn't offend me, but it offends her.
So that comes to James Clear, though, right? When you have to create an environment in which you can build that habit.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're always against the gun, time-wise, are you going to build that habit?
Depends.
That's a great question.
Depends when it occurs. It's like the moments that are the most difficult for me is like, and I've asked a few of my clients for coaching on this too, because they're all women. Right? I'm like, a man can't solve this problem. Like I need a female's perspective. And so far, every scenario that I've presented to all of my female clients, they have all told me that I am way wrong. I'm like, well, you're all saying that I'm wrong, so I must be wrong, and meanwhile, I'm going one after the other, hoping I get the answer that I want, right? Which is, no, John, you got it figured out. You're right. She's wrong. Okay. But I'll have a schedule from 7, 8 in the morning until I might have calls as late as 7 and 8 p.m. Okay. I won't have any calls on my schedule from 8 until 12. And then from 12 to 8, I have calls except for maybe 1 to 2 hour window where I go to the gym and train. And then I come home and then I have calls until, day's done. Right. And all morning, just because I don't have calls don't mean I'm not like slammed busy with work. Right. Like I've got projects I'm trying to get completed, ads placed, payments processed. There's a ton of work that I'm trying to get done. So I'm busy. Okay. And then obviously from 12 to 5, let's say, or 12 to 4, I'm on calls. And then from 4 to 6, I'm at the gym. And then from 6 to 8, I'm on calls. And she doesn't, like, all morning was free. She didn't come ask me, like, want to talk to me at like 10. Right. Right. She chose to want to talk to me at 4. When I'm like, just got off a call and I'm trying to get to the gym and get back for my next call. And that's frustrating for me because I'm like, if she's like, I can't get 5 minutes. I can't get 10 minutes. And I'm not throwing her under the bus. I'm not saying she's wrong. I'm saying she's right. But she's like, I can't get 5 or 10 minutes. And she was like irritated with me. Right. Because I'm making it. The truth of the matter is I'm making the gym a higher priority than her. Right. Like I got to get to the gym and I got to get that done. So I get back, for these calls.
Gym.
And so I didn't. What's that?
Not just the gym. You're making everything.
Just your schedule in general.
You're making your schedule.
My question is like, where is her responsibility? And she knows my schedule. So where's her responsibility in coming to me and wanting to talk at 10 when I don't have any calls?
I got a
better question. Ask a better question.
I got a better question.
What's the better question?
Who do you want to be? No. Who do you want? Who do you want to be? Who do you want to be?
I want to be a great man. I want to be a
Who
great
do you
husband.
want to be for her?
Great husband.
What does that mean?
Means loving, supportive. She's top priority. Provide for her. She knows I care. Never has to question whether or not I love her.
But we're not talking about what you know. We're talking about who you're being. So are you being the guy you want to be for her?
I feel like I am.
So yet you don't have any time.
I mean, maybe not in that 5 minutes. Maybe not in that 5 minutes.
Wait a minute. What?
I mean, I'm still being that person. I feel like I am that person. But
So
I guess my struggle is like you had from 8 to 12, right? Like I trained.
Right. So why didn't you step out of your office between 8 and 12 and say, you want to grab a cup of coffee? You got a couple minutes to sit out in the yard?
That's true. And why didn't she bring me a cup of coffee?
I think
usually you have to, John, to use your language with me, lead with a giving hand.
I'm so wrong on that. How wrong am I?
Entire life.
It's, you know what, relationships take both people to work, and both people need to work, and you guys just need to get to that point where you're understanding each other for who you are and who you want to be for one another. I'm taking this boundaries class at church, and it's astounding to me.
Cool. That's cool.
It's really neat. I'm learning a lot. But it talks about, how you build boundaries and, how people go through stuff and like bad breakups or, bad boyfriends, bad girlfriends, whatever. And so they build up these boundaries, and they use, the analogy they use is like your yard, your boundaries or your yard for your property. And if you go through all that stuff and you build up these boundaries, they're just walls. But see, what you really need to have is kind of a mesh fence because you want to keep the people that want to bring in bad stuff out, but you want to let the people that want to bring in good stuff in. Mm-hmm. So it can't be a wall. It has to be a mesh fence.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's true. Right? I mean, but you have to, that fence is, you go through that fence, things come through to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I really, I wish I could describe with words how badly I want to get it right. Like, there are no words. It's indescribable how passionate I am about getting it right. But I can't help the logic side from creeping in. And it's like that example with, I mean, I could have taken a break between 8 and 12 and gone and said, hey, do you want to get a cup of coffee? I could have done that. It didn't occur to me during that period of time, or I would have done that. Right. So it wasn't like I'm ignoring her. That's not like I don't want to do that. Right. I'm at work, and I mean, just because I'm home doesn't mean I'm not working. You know what I mean? So and just because I'm not on calls doesn't mean I'm not working. So like my head's in something, that's kind of what I'm focused on. So it's not that she's not a priority and I don't care. It's just my focus is here at the moment. You know, but what occurred to me, what was brought to my attention was like, I had all this time for her, just like there are days that I train and days that I don't train. Like the days that I don't train, I've got a lot more flexibility. That's one less thing on my schedule that's got to get done that day. Right. And so those are ideal times. Like if you want to chat, hey, we can chat. Like here, and here. Okay. But this little 5 minutes or 10 minutes it takes me to get off this call and get to the gym, that's not the best time. So if you want my undivided attention, and apparently I cannot do this, but if you want my undivided attention, block some time for yourself in my schedule. I know. I see the look on your face. I got that so wrong. That was so wrong. I was told to never do that again. But I was like,
we both went.
But I'm like, my schedule is how I prioritize my day. So you are a priority. Let me put a block in my schedule every day just for you. And she was like, absolutely not. And I was like, well, how am I supposed to keep track of you as a priority then? And I didn't say that. So you
do this. I have a trick for you.
What's that?
I have a trick for you. Put a little reminder on your phone the day before for the next day when you're going to have a few minutes. Uh-huh. She doesn't need to know that it's a reminder on your phone. Just, when that reminder goes off, go out and be like, hey, do you want to get a cup of coffee or whatever it is that you want to do so that you can have a few minutes to chat?
I messed this up so bad, man.
God, could you pick Carrie off the floor, please?
Yeah. Like this whole time, like I've never had like all this stuff that I'm learning now. Like I never learned.
No,
like
I
haven't had a lot of relationships. You know what I mean? I mean, most of the dating that I have done was all very short term. Right. And I went years. Like the one real serious relationship I had, it was like, after that, I was like, I'm done. Like I have no interest in this at all. And I'm just going to work on me and my businesses, and I'm going to do my thing. And I did that for like 3 or 4 years. Right. And then I met Brittany. And so a lot of the stuff that to some people's like common sense, I'm like, dude, I don't have the slightest idea.
No.
Like to me, I'm like, what's wrong with putting a block in my schedule to have time with you every day? Like to me, that makes sense. That makes certain that you get this time every day.
That's your right.
I mean, I've got sleep blocked in my schedule. I've got my prayer and reading time blocked in my schedule. I've got the gym blocked in my schedule. Everything goes in my schedule.
So
that's how I follow my day and make sure my day unfolds the way that I want my day to unfold.
I think, Sean, would you see if we have November's Lindsay Warner stuff?
Here's the other thing.
Wait, okay.
Here's another chip in my corner. Okay. I have completely eliminated work on the weekend. Like I don't even open my laptop on Friday after my last coaching call. If I do a consult all day Friday and I have coaching calls until
Step out of this
7.
Yeah.
After that coaching call, I'm on weekend mode. Like I don't even open my laptop. I may pull up my phone and check emails or like delete, spam email and stuff, but I don't work. And I do that so that her and Alex and Madeline get my undivided attention all weekend. But when Monday rolls around, it's like go mode until Friday.
I think there's two things. Like one, I hear what you're saying totally. And I think when we work from home, so one of the adjustments that I think a lot of people don't realize is that when you work for yourself and you work from home, you work all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And some people use work to hide out, like I do. I totally use work, to hide out.
No, you don't.
I use work to hide out. But the thing is that one of the things that we had to learn, Sean and I had to learn, and we're learning this now, right? So we've been together since 1984. And we're just learning this now, is that we review our calendars every, once a week, the whole week, and we review them daily. And then we look to see where is there time for us. We tried to do the whole, let's make sure we have coffee together every morning. It doesn't work. That trying to schedule time, it's saying, hey, where do you have time today? And then we have to do what when I came to Fortune, you said, go out and meet the alliance partners and lead with a giving hand. Give of yourself first. Give of your time, give of your knowledge, give of your attention, whatever that is. And really, that's been the thing that has been the greatest help in trying to figure this new dynamic of our relationship when we both work from home on the company. There's never a time when there's not work that could be done.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going to prioritize the relationship, that means you have to start. You always have to look for that place to say, ooh, I got a 10-minute break. Want to go out for a walk? Or I got a 10-minute break. Want to grab a coffee? Or whatever it is, so that you can just spend that quality time with that person, which shows that person that they are the biggest priority.
Yeah. I messed that up so bad because it's like my way, like our love language is mismatch because like I'll buy stuff and, I use my strengths, right? Like there are things that I can do. And so like, if I can do that, then I can pay for this when we go here and I can do that. And that's my way of saying, I care. I love you. I want the best for you. I'm investing in you. Like that's my way of showing that, right? But what she needs is like consistent, not consistent, but she needs me to fill her tank more often.
Yeah. So she
right?
needs you more present.
Yeah. And the way that I fill her tank is different than the way I is different than my strategy or my approach, I guess. Right.
And that's having that conversation ahead of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Man, I got a long way to go. I'm not good at this at all. I'm so bad at this.
True. Are you seeing it as a learning or are you seeing it as a miss?
Say that again.
Well, I mean, are you looking at it as an opportunity to learn or are you looking at it as an opportunity?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like that's one of the things that I'm most grateful for in our relationship is how uncomfortable I had to get, how fast. Like when her and Madeline and Alex moved in with me, my world completely changed. Like we get most of our certainty from our environment, right? Mm-hmm. My entire environment was completely turned upside down. Like lights, it still irritates me to this day. Nobody turns lights off in this house. I go around, I'll go in the room, the light's on, I'll turn it off when I come out. 10 minutes later, it's on again. And I'm like, why is that light back on? So it's little stuff like that and stuff like laying around, like Madeline's 6. right? So I'll find one shoe in the bathroom next to the toilet and then the other shoe on the counter in the kitchen. And I'm like, why are the shoes in two different, I don't, I don't understand. And then I'll go get them and I'll put them together and I'll put them on the stairs for her to take up when she goes upstairs. And an hour later, they're in two different places again. And I'm like, I'm lost. So it's like my whole environment is different. Everything's different. And it's also like spilled over into my schedule. So now it has affected my schedule and the way my day unfolds and when I can train. So my whole routine is shot, right? Like I've got more flexible now than ever. And add to that how bad I am with this whole relationship thing and communication. It's like, golly,
so,
man.
Can I just grab onto that for one quick second?
Sure,
And I know we said we'd only be an hour, but the thing about attaching the word bad to that, I would attach the word gift. Because if you're learning, you have the greatest gift you're ever going to get. The greatest gift, because you're learning how to mesh a whole bunch of humans of different ages, they're girls, into your world. And I don't think you messed anything up. I think that you have a choice. I mean, you can look at it that way, but you can also look at it like you have been given the greatest gift, which is that your mind is flexing to a world that you couldn't have even imagined a year and a half ago.
Yeah, totally. And I'm probably being a little overcritical. I don't think that I'm bad, but I think I'm pretty good. But I think where I want to be is so far down the road from where I actually am. And so that's one of the things that gets me really excited is I would have never gotten there without her. You know what I mean? Like who God saw this as a necessary step in my life to help me become the man that I want to be. You know what I mean? He was like, it's going to be a little uncomfortable, but this is the only way you're going to get there. You know what I mean? And so we're not going to, tiptoe into the shallow end and then gradually, make our way to the deep end. We're going to jump off high dive. You know what I mean?
I love that.
And I'm grateful for that because I look at how, I look at just how much I have evolved just in the time that she and I have been together. And when I take a step back and look at that, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. I'm still a long ways away from where I want to be ultimately, but I wouldn't be here without her. I thought I was doing pretty good. Like I'd gotten to a place. It's like I told her, like I wanted to get to a place where I wasn't bringing resentment and fear from a previous relationship into this one. Like I wanted to be ready for this, right? I didn't want to I've never been a person to just go from one relationship to the next. Like I don't need a relationship. I want a relationship. Right. And I'm more than willing to, do my own thing until the right one shows up. Right. And the right one may not be pretty on paper, but for me, I'm not looking for certain bells and whistles. I'm looking for, how did I explain it to her? Like I'm not looking for certain bells and whistles. I'm looking for, how do I describe that? Quality of character. You know what I mean? Like quality of human being. That's much more important to me than how much money someone makes or what somebody does for a living or, how they treat people. That's so much higher on my priority list. And so, I can't remember where I was going with that, but
just the fact that you're asking these questions and that you're thinking about this sort of thing, that says a lot about you. And so, I think it's amazing that you look at these things and you truly think about how to be better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, I remember what it was like where I was before I met her, like I was in a really good place, right? Like I was like, okay, I'm in a good place. I feel good. I'm a good person, right? Like I was in a good place. And then I met her, and comparing myself now to where I was before I met her is way, way better. You know, and I've even had, even my clients have, even y'all have made that comment, like you like me better because of her. And I'm like, what was wrong with me? What was wrong with me?
I said, I was very clear. I said, I just love who you become in relationship, because there is a wholeheartedness and there is a little bit more flexibility and there is more curiosity. And I think that there is more emotion, there is more laughter, and there's a little bit less distraction. And, you know, I think that expansiveness, that opportunity to grow, that's what's shining through. You know, that's what's exciting. But you can't say, oh, I did this wrong or it was bad or anything like that, because, and I truly mean this. I mean, if Sean and I, it would be impossible to make it since 1984 if we looked at every single learning opportunity as a misstep, because we've had bazillions. And people are like, how in the world do you stay married that long? How do you work with somebody that you live with? How do you, that we get asked this question all the time. And honest to God, John, it's every single opportunity that you're being faced with right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just stepping into them wholehearted and going, well, I could have done that different.
Yeah. I think too many, and I apologize, ladies, I didn't mean to carry you this long, so we'll wrap up here. But I think too many people, and this is true. I mean, everything that we've talked about tonight, this has been more about personal relationships, but I believe the principles of personal relationships apply just as much in a professional atmosphere as they do in your personal life.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think this comment's true too. Like, I think a lot of people bounce from relationship to relationship to relationship, looking for the relationship to fill some void. And you see employees bounce from practice to practice to practice to practice, looking for the environment to fill some void. Well, look at the common denominator, right? You've been in 8 practices in 8 years. The practices aren't the problem.
Right.
Right? Like there's something you've got to work on. You've been in 8 relationships in 8 years. The people that you're dating are not the problem.
Right.
Like you need to work, you need to fill the void yourself. Like you don't go to a relationship to find happiness. You find happiness and then you go to a relationship to share it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then you have to keep going that.
Yeah. And I think people who go into relationships looking for that relationship to fix something wrong with them, I think that relationship's doomed unless they figure that out, unless they work on it and they resolve that. You know, I think that relationship's doomed. And I think that's one of the reasons why 1 out of every 2 people that get married, you know, now wind up divorced, you know, and then they get married again. It's almost as if the period between like the success rate of second divorce of second marriages is a lot higher than first marriages. It's almost as if they learned what they needed to learn during the sabbatical. You know what I mean? Well, why don't you figure that out on the front end?
Well, because you got to, you know, it's just like if you're going to stay long-term at a job, if you're going to stay long-term in a job or long-term in a marriage, you have to understand that you are going to evolve multiple times throughout the lifespan of that relationship, right? And so whoever you choose to go into a relationship with, the dialogue has to be open. The communication has to be open enough that people allow that evolution, support that evolution as you work your way through it.
Yeah.
And you have to have the awareness to say, okay, am I still good for the people that I'm involved with? And if I'm not, do I want to be? And if I want to be, what do I need to do to be good for them too? Right.
Yeah.
Because they're all on that journey with you.
Yeah. And let me clarify, I don't want to offend anybody. So A, I don't believe that that's the only reason people get divorced. And B, my statistic there was completely anecdotal. There's no research or data to support the claim that second marriages are more successful than the first ones. I'm basing that I'm basing that solely off of people that I know in my experience. So knowing people who have been married, divorced, got married again, I tend to see the second one much more successful than the first one. So, yeah. Don't take that to the bank.
Well, in my case, the third one is the best.
The third one?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Evolution.
Yeah. And I think I don't know. I'm not a relationship expert. I'm not a marriage counselor or anything like that. I know a little bit about psychology. But I think the process of relationship is more about self-discovery.
Absolutely.
Trying to figure out who it is, trying to figure out who you are and who you want to be for the person that you're trying to make happy.
Yep.
Because I don't think if you can't make yourself happy, like if you don't enjoy your own company, why would anybody else? If you can't kick it and hang out by yourself and have a good time and just enjoy your own peace and enjoy your own thoughts, I mean, you're just taking all that stuff. The person you're with don't want all that.
That's so true. So true.
So it's tough, man. That's a relationships are a tricky business, man. It's
Absolutely.
complicated
For everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, ladies, I appreciate you spending some time with me this evening.
It was fun.
Yeah.
We need to do some more of these. I like the 21st century dentistry. That's fun interviewing people, but I tend to learn a lot on these, and I have a lot of fun on these. I want to do these more.
These are fun. These are way more fun. Way more
I hate
fun.
Reagan couldn't join us, but maybe we'll get her on the next one.
Yeah.
And we'll call that a night. So I hope you both have a great rest of your night. I love you both. And if you need anything from me, just give me a call.
Love you too. Thanks for
Love
this.
you guys.
Bye, you guys. This was fun. See ya.